Hi, I'm Kim Rathbone from Rathbone Group. I'm here at the National Association of Subrogation Professionals Conference in San Diego. And joining me today is George Codding from NEFCO Fire Investigations. Thank you very much for being on our channel.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is a great conference. Really happy to be here.
Thank you. So George just got done speaking about what experts, attorneys, and carriers value most in their partners. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. Yeah, we just had a panel. I was just one of 4 speakers. There was myself as an expert in litigation or pre-litigation. There was an attorney who does a lot of subrogation work, a carrier representative, a vice president of a major carrier, and then a gentleman that specializes in subrogation support. So it was a great mix of people all talking about what do we want to get from each other, what improves our relationships with each other, and what makes for the best subrogation case.
Yeah, and so what are the topics that you discussed?
Well, we did it as a top 10 list. And so we counted our way down from we are not the same, went through things like no surprises, keeping things simple so that we could all understand each other, talked a little bit about budgets and attorneys when they settle cases, do they do it too quickly and all. And then we wound up with number 1, which really pervades the whole thing, which is communication.
Yes. So how can the different parties increase their communication with each other to make the process better?
It was so interesting. I do presentations for NEFCO. I happen to have an attorney background, and so I spent some of my time flying around and giving presentations or doing them online. And one time I was doing an online presentation about fire investigators' expertise, and I talked about certificates, and I talked about training and science and the manuals and all. And then somewhere in the presentation, I stopped and I said, "So what are you looking for in a fire investigator?" And I immediately got 6 or 8 responses, and everybody said, "We just want you to call us back. We just want to be able to communicate with you." That was so interesting to me because it really brought home the idea of the communication is 90% of the game here.
Yeah, throughout the process, too.
Right.
Like, not even just in the beginning, but as things change and progress as well.
Right.
Yes. So you have a unique perspective because you're both an expert and an attorney. But if you're not both of those things, how do you think that the different parties should be familiar with each other's fields?
Well, and that's something that was a little bit controversial in our panel. And I disagreed with the attorney who wants things simple and understandably so. And the carrier absolutely agreed with him as well. They want to know what we think immediately, not too flowery of language and not too scientific. Now that's trouble for me because I want to delve into the science and I want to give you every little detail. What I tell people is, okay, first of all, let's figure out what our communication style is and how much information do you need. And then the other thing is to encourage people to understand each other's fields a little bit. So I know that the attorney is extremely busy. I'm extremely busy. But if I, as an expert, know a little bit about how the legal process works and some of the definitions that you are working with, if you're bringing a subrogation case, a little bit of the legal landscape, then that helps me to provide what you need. If you know a little bit about fire and fire investigation and the carrier as well, that helps me to describe what we have in a scene, almost, I don't want to say scientifically, but the physical aspects of the scene so that you can understand better what do we have, what are our challenges going to be if we bring a subrogation case.
Yeah, I mean, I assume there's people that you work with that have had very little experience with a lot of the expert terminology and fires and everything.
Clearly, yes, and sometimes you can just tell by talking to folks that that's the case. And so I just say, and I actually do a lot of training on this in various places. This is my environment. This is what as an expert, as a fire investigator, this is my environment. This is how the process that I use to go through an investigation. These are the steps. This is the sort of thing you're going to see in reporting. And it might seem a little odd the way I'm reporting something, but it's done because of the protocols of our community, the fire investigation.
Yeah. I mean, your answer really sounds like it's very proactive. Tell me about does being proactive really help in the process?
Yeah, I think so. And I certainly encourage people in this chat to, and it's just part of communication again, right? I mean, it all comes back to communication. But it was, for example, as an expert, if we have a case going, if we actually have a case filed, then please just give me an update as to what's going on. And there's a couple of important reasons for that. I mean, one is really obvious. If an expert report is due in 48 hours and somebody didn't tell me, then the expert report could be a mess. It could be very difficult to make it into a good report. And I've had experience on the attorney side of things with experts. If they don't know that a responsive, like a rebuttal report might be due, or there's a delay in letting us know about something and then an expectation that we might have to do it really quickly, then that could result in trouble, especially if we're on vacation or something.
Sure.
And I guess that's fairly obvious, but
things are further away, or
sure. Sure. And then maybe you'll get a response. And we as attorneys have all been in a situation where something's happening at the last minute. That's the nature of litigation to some extent. But again, you don't want something sort of halfway done from me. And I don't want to be surprised, for example, somebody's making a motion or making an allegation or an argument that you don't qualify as an expert. That's one thing that I always tell people every time I talk to them, is that ever the inkling of a Daubert motion or the state equivalent for a Daubert motion or anything else in a pleading or even in a phone call that suggests that the investigator is being questioned about their qualifications in the field, they need to know about it right away, because they need to defend it. They need to help you defend them. And you're not their attorney, but their reputation really is on the line when their qualifications are being discussed.
Absolutely.
So that's one great way to be proactive and get people involved. Some of the larger fire investigation companies will spend a lot of time training their people on court procedure, on testimony and that sort of thing. And if something's coming up, they will actually get together and do a lot of preparation just to sort of make sure that we're covering everything. Fire investigators in the United States generally come from the police service or the fire service, and so they don't necessarily get to court that often. Now, cops get to court quite a bit to testify about things that they were involved in, but not so much firefighters, which really is the bulk of fire investigators. And so don't assume that they know how to testify or they know what's needed in court or even in the reports.
Which is part of the sharing of information and acting as a team, and why all that's so important.
Right. So you need to update me. I need to update you. We need to know if things are going to trial or motions or anything else, of course.
Exactly.
When things settle, let us know right away. Speaking of both proactivity and communication, I remember the words of a subrogation attorney that I thought were really, really valuable, which was, when you communicate with me and you let me know what you have, understanding that I may understand the science very well, I may not understand the science very well, but please tell me if it's bad. Tell me if it's not going to work out. Tell me if you think that there are enough issues within the case from your scientific perspective, your expert perspective, that it's going to make it a bad case, because it's not worth our time if it's going to fail.
Yes.
Why should we spend all this time? And so I thought that was a good piece of advice. The experts in the field, we're calling people from the field. Just give us the whole story. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't be too excited about it if there are other areas that might have some warts. Just bring it all out.
Because there's decisions that everyone needs to make. Costs, on time, resources.
Exactly.
Yes, I think that honesty and direct approach is the perfect way to.
Yeah. I also mentioned experts, just to make sure they stay in their lane and make sure that you know what the lane is. Don't try to get us to exceed what we are comfortable saying. And don't hesitate or don't be afraid to hire somebody else to go with us if the need is there, because it's a topic that's too specific or too far out of our lane.
Yeah. Well, and that goes with the consistency of testimony and being able to qualify for Daubert, as you're going off of your opinion and you're not being pressured by anybody appropriately to get the outcome that you want.
But if you put something in a report, if you make suggestions as to languaging and we reluctantly agree, and then later it comes up in litigation, we may not remember why we said that. We may not be able to defend it, and then it makes it more awkward.
It would be a huge issue. I completely agree. Well, it was a really well-attended session and very interactive. You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us. Again, I'm Kim Rathbone with Rathbone Group, and this is George Codding from NEFCO Fire Investigations. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's the long and short of it.